I never thought I'd end up in a situation like this. My wife Emma seemed perfect, kind, funny, gorgeous in that understated way that made everyone turn their heads. We'd been together for over 10 years. Everything felt stable, predictable, even. We had plans, a home, a future. I'd always thought she was the one, the person I'd trust with my life. That was, until I found the evidence. It started a few days ago when I decided to finally clean out the closet. It was supposed to be a quick job, just tossing out some old clothes, maybe reorganizing. But as I reached behind the shoe rack, my hand brushed against a thick envelope tucked deep in the corner. I pulled it out, expecting perhaps some old receipts or a forgotten gift card. Instead, I saw hotel receipts, crumpled and folded, a small stack, all in her handwriting, with dates that didn't match up with any recent trips we'd taken. My stomach clenched. I knew immediately these weren't just receipts for a weekend getaway. They were proof of something else: secret plans, secret nights, and a lie I'd missed for months. I looked closer. The receipts listed hotels I'd never heard of, places she'd never mentioned, all with dates just before our anniversary. That sinking feeling took over my chest like someone had punched me. I looked at the handwriting. Neatly scribbled on the backs of the receipts was a name I'd never seen in her phone, but that I'd remember now for the rest of my life: her boss. I can't exactly say I was surprised. I'd had hints over the years, little things that didn't add up. A quick glance at her phone when she thought I wasn't looking, a nervous laugh when I'd ask about her late nights at work. But she always had a reason: stress, long hours, the company's deadlines. I'd ignored my gut because I wanted to believe in her, in us, until now. The room felt suddenly heavier. My palms were slick, and my heart pounded so loud I could hear it in my ears. I sat there, clutching the crumpled receipts and the envelope like they were a life raft. For a moment, I wondered if I'd made a mistake, if maybe I was overreacting. But then I remembered the hotel names, the dates, the way her phone buzzed at odd hours, and how I'd caught her lying about meetings that never existed. My mind raced, trying to process what I just found. All those years, all those quiet, peaceful nights, and now I knew she'd been planning to leave me, probably months ago. The worst part, she probably thought she could sneak away, hide the evidence, and I'd never find out. But I had. And there was no way I was going to let her get away with it. I remember holding the receipts and feeling a strange mixture of rage and heartbreak. I wanted to break something, shatter the silence she'd kept, the lie she'd spun for so long. Instead, I clenched my fists and looked around the room. Everything suddenly seemed worthless, like the ground had shifted beneath me and I was standing on a sinking ship. I kept asking myself, what now? How do I confront her? Do I even want to talk, or should I just burn everything and walk away? But deep down, I knew I needed a plan, something brutal, something that would make her regret every second she spent betraying me. I just didn't know what that looked like yet. The worst part, I still loved her. Or at least, I thought I did, but love doesn't erase a betrayal like this. I felt hollow, like someone had hollowed me out from the inside. Every breath I took was sharp and cold. I couldn't sleep that night, replaying the moment I found the evidence over and over, feeling the way my stomach twisted each time. I looked around the room, her side of the bed, the untouched coffee cups, the little things she'd left behind, trying to cling to some last shred of normalcy. But normal was gone. She was gone. I knew I had to decide what I was going to do, and I had to do it fast. And that's when I realized I wasn't just going to walk away quietly. No, I needed to make her regret ever crossing me. I didn't plan to be the victim here. I'd find a way to turn this around. But first, I needed to figure out how deep this betrayal went and what I was willing to risk to get even. Because if she thought she could cheat and walk away, she had another thing coming. The next few days felt like walking through a fog. Every time I tried to think straight, my mind kept circling back to that envelope, to her plans, to her betrayal. I kept asking myself how I missed the signs, how I let someone I trusted so completely slip through my fingers. It was like waking up from a nightmare, only to realize it was my reality. I couldn't stay quiet. That night I sat at the edge of the bed, staring at my phone for hours, trying to decide what to do. I knew I needed to confront her, but I also knew I couldn't just do it without a plan. I wasn't about to be some doormat, waiting for her to cheat again or lie her way out. No, I had to be smart. I started gathering everything I knew, texts, receipts, even her emails. I wanted to make sure I had all the evidence in one place, so I wouldn't be caught off guard. I also decided I'd need something to hit her with, something that would sting, something that would make her realize she'd crossed a line. The morning after I found the receipts, I called my lawyer friend Mike. I needed an outsider's perspective. Look, I told him, I've got proof she's been lying, sneaking around with her boss. I want to know what my options are if I decide to end this. Mike didn't sugarcoat it. You've got grounds for divorce for sure. And if you want to make her pay a little, he paused. There are ways to do that without turning it into a circus. Keep your evidence. Don't confront her until you're ready. That advice hit home. I realized I was going to need a plan, something calculated, something that would make her regret crossing me. I wasn't just going to walk out and leave her unscathed. No, I wanted her to feel the pain, the betrayal, the loss of control. One thing was clear. I had to make her think I didn't know everything, yet I started laying the groundwork. I began acting normal, even friendly when I saw her. But inside, I was boiling. Every glance, every word from her was a reminder of how deeply she'd hurt me. I watched her carefully, trying to pick up on anything that could help my plan. I knew she was planning to leave me. She'd spent nights packing, I was sure of it. But I didn't want her to think I was clueless. I wanted her to think she was winning, to keep her comfortable while I plotted my move. That meant I had to pretend I was still clueless, play the silent husband. Inside, though, I was already devising my revenge. One night she casually mentioned her big meeting with, "It's just some work stuff," she said, brushing her hair back nervously. I kept my face blank. "Yeah," I said, voice steady. "You're working late again." She hesitated, then nodded. "Yeah, the project's tight. You know how it is." I smiled bitterly. "Sure, long hours, huh? I guess I should get used to the idea of losing my wife to your boss." Her eyes flickered, but she said nothing. I could see her tense, her fingers tightening around her glass. That's when I realized I had enough to set my plan in motion. I didn't confront her yet. Instead, I waited, watching her every move, collecting more pieces of the puzzle. I knew I'd need concrete proof, something irrefutable, before I made my move. But I also knew I couldn't wait too long because she was getting ready to run. I decided I'd set up a little sting, something that would push her to reveal herself completely. I wanted her to slip up, to give me the final piece of evidence I needed. I also wanted to make her realize she'd lost control of the game. That night, I planted a hidden camera in the living room, aiming at the door. Nothing fancy, just enough to catch her if she came in late from a supposed meeting. I wasn't about to leave anything to chance. I also made a mental note to check her phone again, without her knowing, so I could get a sense of her next moves. Now I had everything set. The pieces were in place. All I had to do was wait for her to make her next move. But inside, I felt the burn of anger and betrayal. I was ready to strike, and I knew once I did, nothing would ever be the same. The question was, how far was I willing to go to make her regret? And more importantly, what was I going to do when the moment finally came? The wait felt like an eternity. Every hour dragged by, every small noise in the house made my stomach tight. I kept watching the camera feed, fingers tapping nervously on my leg, eyes darting to the door every time I heard a noise. The house was silent, except for the occasional creak of the old floorboards. I felt like a predator in the shadows, waiting for the prey to make a mistake. That night, around 11 p.m., I saw her. Emma slipped in through the front door, looking nervous but trying to act casual. She was wearing a coat, and her eyes darted around the room like she was checking for hidden cameras or listening devices. My pulse hammered in my chest. I knew then that she had no idea I was watching. She tiptoed into the bedroom, clutching her purse tightly. I stayed silent, watching her move, feeling a strange mix of adrenaline and disgust. She thought she was sneaking around, but I knew her game now. I had the evidence, and I was about to use it. A few minutes later, I heard her whispering on the phone, softly but clearly enough to catch some fragments. "Yes, I'll be home late. No, I don't know how long I'll be. Just keep quiet." "About it?" My fists clenched. She was talking to. I could hear the faint sound of his voice in the background, smooth and confident. That was the moment I decided to go all in. No more hiding, no more pretending I didn't know. Next morning I sat Emma down at breakfast. She looked tired, nervous even. Her hands trembled slightly as she reached for her coffee. I kept my tone calm, but my voice was cold enough to cut. "We need to talk." She froze. "What's wrong?" I laid the evidence on the table: hotels, receipts, the texts I'd screenshot from her phone. Her face drained of color. "Care to explain this?" I asked quietly, voice steady but hard. She stammered, trying to deny it at first. "It's nothing, just work trips, is a friend, I swear." I shook my head slowly. "It's not just work, Emma. I know what you're doing. You're planning to leave me, aren't you?" Her eyes welled with tears. "I didn't mean for you to find out like this. I was going to tell you eventually." "Eventually," I repeated, voice dripping with anger. "When? After you'd already packed your bags?" She looked away, silent. There was a long, heavy pause. I leaned forward. "You can't lie your way out of this. I want the truth, everything now." She hesitated, then burst into tears. "I was unhappy, okay? I felt trapped, made me feel alive again. I thought I was doing the right thing, leaving you, I guess. I didn't plan for you to find out like this." That was a punch to the gut. A part of me wanted to scream, to tear into her, but I knew I had to stay cold. I was already planning my next move, one that would make her regret ever betraying me. I told her I needed some space, that I'd be leaving for a few days. I wanted her to feel the pain of losing me, to see what life was like without me around. I packed a bag and left the house, feeling my stomach churn with a mixture of rage and heartbreak. The house now felt like a prison, every corner echoing with memories I could no longer trust. As I drove away, I realized that I had everything I needed to end this: proof, a plan, and a decision. Emma was no longer part of my life, not just because she cheated, but because she'd broken something fundamental. That night I spent hours drafting my next steps. I knew I could make her regret this, make her see what she'd lost. But I also knew that revenge was a double-edged sword. Whatever I chose, I had to be sure I was strong enough to follow through. The real game was just beginning. I could feel it in my bones. Emma thought she'd betrayed me and walked away, but the truth was I was about to turn the tables, and she wouldn't see it coming. All I had to do now was wait for her to make her next move, and I'd be ready to strike harder than she ever imagined. The days that followed were a blur. I stayed away from the house, giving myself space to think and plan. But inside, I was simmering with a kind of quiet rage. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her face, guilty, scared, and desperate. I knew she was planning her next move, that she thought she had the upper hand, but I wasn't done yet, not even close. I kept digging through her phone, her emails, every little detail I could find. I wanted to be sure I had everything before I made my final move. And I did find one thing that surprised me: a text from her too, sent the night she slipped into the house. It read, "It's done. I'm leaving him tonight. Meet me at the hotel." That was the last piece I needed. She was ready to run, to cut ties and start anew with her boss. I felt a strange mix of satisfaction and fury. She thought she'd outsmart me, but she'd left a trail. I knew I couldn't just confront her without a plan, so I devised one, something that would hit her where it hurt most. I wanted her to know I wasn't just some pushover. I wanted her to feel the weight of her betrayal, the loss of her control, and I wanted her to regret ever crossing me. First, I contacted myself. I played it cool, acting like I didn't know anything. I told him I appreciated his discretion and that I was aware of the hotel plans. I asked if he'd like to meet, to discuss things. Surprisingly, he took the bait. We arranged a meetup at a quiet coffee shop that afternoon. I wanted him to know I was onto him, that I was willing to play dirty if necessary. Meanwhile, I called my lawyer, Mike, again. "I want everything prepared," I told him. "I'm going to give her a taste of her own medicine. I want her to see I'm serious." That evening, I parked outside the hotel she was planning to meet at. I'd bought a disposable phone and I kept it in my jacket pocket. I wanted to record her, to catch her in the act if possible without her knowing. I also sent her a message on her phone pretending to be, "Looking forward to tonight, be ready." I was ready for her, but I didn't want to be reckless. I kept my distance, watching expectantly from across the street. When she finally arrived at the hotel, I saw her slip inside, clutching her bag tightly. Every nerve in my body was on edge. I knew I was about to see her truly fall. I waited until I saw her in the hotel lobby. through the camera feed. Then I took a deep breath and texted her, "Surprise, I know everything." Her face froze in the doorway, eyes wide with shock. I could practically hear her heartbeat through the phone. She looked around, trembling. I watched her try to compose herself, then turn and walk back out. I followed, heart pounding, feeling a twisted satisfaction. I knew I'd finally got her cornered. As she got in her car, I approached her from the shadows. "Emma," I said quietly, voice low and dangerous. "We need to talk now." She looked at me, eyes spilling over with tears. "Please just leave me alone." "No," I interrupted sharply. "You've been lying, sneaking, betraying. I know everything. The hotel, the plan to leave me right before our anniversary." Her lips trembled, but she said nothing, just stared at the ground, defeated. That's when I realized the moment was right. I reached into my pocket, pulled out the evidence I had collected, and slowly pressed it into her hand. "This isn't over," I said coldly, "but it's a start, and don't think you'll walk away from this without consequences." Her face crumpled. "I'm sorry," she whispered, voice broken. I shook my head. "Sorry isn't enough, you're done." That night I went back to the house, now empty and cold. I packed her things, clothes, jewelry, the little things she'd left behind. I left her a note on the kitchen table. "I've seen enough. Don't try to contact me. The house is yours, but I'm done pretending everything's fine." I handed over the keys to the lawyer the next day. I wanted her to know I was serious. This wasn't just a breakup. It was a clean break. I'd made her regret her choices, and I'd made sure she knew I was in control. Now I sit here reflecting on everything. It hurts like hell, but I know I did what I had to do. Sometimes betrayal cuts so deep that revenge is the only way to feel whole again. And honestly, I don't regret a thing. The days after I handed her the keys were the hardest. I'd spent so long planning, so much energy focused on her betrayal, that now, with everything finally done, I felt hollow. Like I'd emptied myself and left nothing behind. The house was silent, cold, and I walked through each room like a ghost, trying to remember what life was before the betrayal. I kept replaying that night in my head, her face as she saw me, her trembling hands, the way her eyes looked like they'd been caught in a trap. I realized that I'd done more than just punish her. I'd finally taken back control. Still inside, a small voice kept whispering, was it enough? Would she really feel the pain I wanted her to feel? Or was I just fooling myself? I spent hours alone, walking around town, trying to clear my mind. But the same questions kept popping up. What now? How do I rebuild from this? I felt like a shell of myself, like the trust I once had was shattered beyond repair. Still, I knew one thing: I wouldn't let her ruin me entirely. One afternoon, I finally reached out to my friends, those who knew about what happened. They listened, nodded, and offered support. But mostly they told me one thing: you did what you needed to do. That was the truth I kept clinging to. I'd taken the hurt and turned it into something else, something sharper. I also started focusing on myself, working out, going to therapy, trying to find pieces of who I was before all this. That's when I realized I'd been given a second chance. Not with Emma, not with that false security I once felt, but with myself. I could choose how I moved forward. I could rebuild, or I could let it destroy me. And then I remembered the last thing I told Emma before I left the house. Don't try to contact me. I meant it. But I also knew I needed closure, something to really seal this chapter. So I decided to do something I never thought I'd do. I went to the house, took a deep breath, and handed over the keys to the lawyer, permanently severing any ties. It felt surreal. Holding the keys in my hand, I watched her walk out of my life for good. That's when I knew I was finally free. No more lies, no more betrayal, no more pretending everything was fine. I'd cut the cord. I was done. The house was hers now, a symbol of what she chose over me. Standing there, I realized I hadn't just lost a wife, I'd lost a part of my life I thought was forever, but what I gained was clarity. I saw the truth about her, about myself, and about what I deserved. It was painful, but it was necessary. Now I'm trying to rebuild. It's slow, and some days are worse than others. But I know one thing: I'm stronger than I thought. I learned that betrayal can cut deep, but it can also reveal the true nature of the people around us, and most importantly, ourselves. So if you're in a similar situation, here's my advice. Don't let anyone take your dignity. Fight for your peace even if it hurts. And never forget, you're the only one who can truly decide how your story ends. Looking back now, I realize how close I came to losing myself entirely in the chaos of betrayal. It's strange. At first, all I could feel was pain, anger, and a deep sense of betrayal. But somewhere along the way, I found a shard of clarity. That clarity told me one thing loud and clear: I deserved better. I think about that moment when I handed her the keys. The house, once full of memories, good and bad, was now just a symbol of her choices. I watched her walk out that door, and in that moment I felt a strange relief. Not happiness, not victory, just relief that I was finally free from the game she'd played. People ask me if I regret any of it. Honestly, I don't. I regret the pain, sure. I regret the trust broken, the years wasted on someone who turned out to be a stranger. But I don't regret standing up for myself. I don't regret fighting back, even if I did it in a way that's probably not the most polite or civilized, because sometimes you have to fight fire with fire. It's the only language that gets through when someone decided to betray you. Now I focus on the future. It's not easy. There are mornings I wake up feeling empty, doubts creeping in like shadows. But I remind myself, I'm not that person anymore. I'm someone who's survived, who's learned that trust is fragile and that sometimes love means walking away before it destroys you. To anyone reading this who's going through something similar, listen. You're not alone. It hurts. It's supposed to hurt. But don't let it define you. Take back your power. Rebuild your life from the ground up, step by step. Because at the end of the day, the only person who truly cares about your happiness is you, and no betrayal can take that away if you refuse to give it. As I sit here writing this, I realize that I've come a long way. The pain still lingers, but it's lighter now. I've learned that revenge isn't about hurting others, it's about reclaiming yourself, about saying, "You may have broken me, but I will rise." And I will.